Hello, CUSD families. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a wonderful webinar tonight that's going to be focusing on the UC and Cal State admissions updates. For those juniors tuning in tonight, this information is especially relevant for you with college application season around the corner. This webinar tonight is being brought to you by Futureology and Collegewise. And we also have some special guests, which you will hear about shortly. But before we begin, I would like to remind you that your microphone is off, your camera is off, this webinar is being recorded. We will be sending a follow-up email shortly after the webinar itself, which will include the slides, so you can always look that over. And tonight we would like to also encourage you to use the Q&A function to interact with us, to provide your questions to us. But keep in mind, at the very end, we will leave time for questions, and we'll begin by answering some of the most common questions we hear frequently. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and begin with introductions. So my name is Jennifer Manzanares. I am one of the 4 CUSD Futureology college and career counselors. We are all credentialed counselors, and we are also college admissions readers for the UCs. We provide one-on-one personalized college counseling appointments for all of the high school students in our district for free. We also provide group events and workshops in addition to these webinars, both in person and virtual. And in addition to that, we also have Spanish support available. I speak Spanish, so does our colleague Monica. Tonight joining us is B. Nguyen, so she will be available to support. Our hours for events usually range between 10 to 8, Monday through Friday, September through May. Currently, we are hosting events online, but to get an idea of what events we're offering, please always look at our website. We update everything frequently. Our website is there on the bottom. Any QR code you see tonight, please hover with your phone camera over it to access the link. And next up, I'm going to pass it on to our expert from Collegewise, Brianne Boyle, who will introduce 2 of our guests tonight.
Hello. So thank you for joining us. We are very, very excited to bring to you from UC Santa Barbara, Cuca Acosta, who will talk to you a little bit about an update from the UCs. And we have Anna Black Hogins from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, who will give you an update there. So we'll get to them in just a second. But who is this other person talking to you that has nothing to do with the UCs and Cal States? Well, I work with Collegewise. We are a local college counseling company. I've been doing webinars and presentations with Futureology and the Capo School District for many years now. I have been working with students for about 10 years, and I will be the new president of the Western Association of College Admission Counseling, starting in just a couple of weeks. So here to answer any of your questions that you might have about college admissions. Just wanted to, before we jump into UCs and Cal States, give you a 1-minute pep talk about the fact that college admissions has, even though it's been a weird year for everything, it mostly hasn't changed. Colleges are really looking for students to, fill their campuses, fill the chairs in their classrooms, whether they're virtual or in person. So, make sure that you're still applying to those schools that are a good fit for you, and know that it's still really good news that most schools are admitting most of the students who apply. And that you can have a good fit if you are creating a good balanced college list. So on to the main attraction here. I will pass it on to our first presentation here. We're going to talk about Cal Poly first, and then we'll do a little bit about the UCs, and then we'll jump straight into Q&A. If we have this scheduled until 7:15, but again, if we have plenty of time for questions for you, but nobody ever gets upset if we end a little early. But we are here until that time to answer those questions that you have. So make sure you throw those in the Q&A. All right, I will hand it over.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Anna Black Hogins. My pronouns are she, hers, and I'm an admissions officer for Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I actually live in San Diego, so I'm specifically the Southern California rep. So I'm happy to be a resource for you. I'll make sure to give you my contact information at the end. I'm going to go ahead and put some links in the chat. There are a lot of them in here, but the most important one is if you want to stay connected with us, please fill fill out the information on that bit.ly link. That way we can stay connected with you and share information, especially when it comes time for you to apply, and then just a couple of additional resources that you'll want to check out later on as well. So just a very quick overview of Cal Poly. We are one of the 23 CSUs located in San Luis Obispo, or you'll hear a lot of people call it SLO for short. We are in a beautiful, beautiful college town on the Central Coast, and going to college in a college town is very unique because the town revolves around the university. So students feel supported not only on campus, but off campus as well. We do have about 21,000 undergraduate students. We are an undergraduate focused institution, meaning most of our students are studying one of the 64 degrees that you can see listed on that Cal Poly brochure I shared in the chat. And then we do have about 800 graduate students. Like I said, we have 64 majors. We also have 90 minors across the 6 different colleges. And what sets Cal Poly apart from a lot of other universities is our learn by doing philosophy. So we go off of a very hands-on learning approach where we believe that students are a lot more engaged when they get to practice their degree rather than being lectured about it. We also utilize an upside down curriculum where students are starting classes in their major from day one. So that does mean you have to declare your major on the application. You can't go in undecided or undeclared. So that way you have 4 full years to study your degree rather than just 2. And Cal Poly graduates typically have 6 to 12 months less training when they start working because they've done a lot of that quote unquote training in the classroom during their 4 years. Cal Poly has been ranked best in the West for a public master's level university for the last 27 years in a row, really because of our learn by doing philosophy and the value of a CSU and the education you're getting. Also, a lot of people do wonder if you do declare your major, can you change your major? Absolutely. 30% of our students do switch majors at Cal Poly, and we always encourage students to apply for as many of the minors too, so you can explore all of your different interests. Student life's also really important. So we have over 400 clubs and organizations. We have student services that ranges from our Center for Military Connected Students, Educational Opportunity Program, our EOP, TRIO, Upward Bound, lots of different student services. And you're going to find out what you can get involved in and what resources we have available for you during one of the top rated orientation programs in the nation called Week of Welcome, where all incoming students participate in a week-long orientation right before classes start. We have a club showcase, a resource fair. There's going to be events on campus and off campus. It's really just a time for you to get acquainted to what you're going to call home for the next 4 years. First years are required to live in the dorms, and then some continuing students are required to live in the dorms depending on majors. But other than that, students can live off campus. Again, it's a college town, so most students live 5 to 15 minutes away. The city bus is free for Cal Poly students, so there's 2 bus stops on campus. It's really easy to get to and from campus to the rest of the town. If you're interested in athletics, we are NCAA Division I for all of our sports. We also have 25 club sports to try out for, along with a series of intramural sports. If anyone's interested in studying abroad, that's a really big component of Cal Poly as well. I do actually encourage you to check out our Cal Poly Admissions Instagram account because we just went live with Study Abroad a few weeks ago, and they went in depth about all the different programs that we have. Student diversity and belonging is also very important to us. Cal Poly is a predominantly white institution, and we do acknowledge that. And so we want to make sure that we are providing a lot of programming for marginalized students. And so there's a lot of different centers, programming, educational opportunities for students to find community and safe spaces, but for also community members, staff, faculty, and students to learn about allyship, as that really goes hand in hand as well. So if you are curious about any of these 6 centers, please check out culture.calpoly.edu, as that's going to give you a really good overview of student diversity and belonging. So just really quick, how to apply. All 23 CSUs do utilize the Cal State Apply. It's open from October 1st to November 30th, and it is $70 per CSU to apply. So please make sure you're doing your research to know what schools actually have the program you're interested in or what location it's in. And if you are a first-generation college student and or low-income student, please, please, please apply for the Educational Opportunity Program. All CSUs have this program on their campus. You will need to apply for it on the Cal State Apply, which is why I'm bringing it up now. So to apply as a first-year applicant, remember you do have to declare your major, and then you need to report your A through G coursework from the beginning of your freshman year till the end of your senior year. We are an impacted campus, meaning we have less spots available than how many total applicants we get. So we are encouraging students to take additional A through G courses than the minimum requirement the CSU system sets. And that encouraged numbers are that second column of numbers on the screen right here. It is not required to get these numbers. We only encourage them because we are starting to see more students come in with these numbers. The next thing we are looking at is an average weighted GPA of freshman, sophomore, and junior year. Most colleges do not look at freshman year, so Cal Poly is an exception. And we are looking at a weighted GPA, so if you've taken honors, AP, IB courses, please make sure you indicate that on the application so we can give you a weighted GPA. Just like fall 2021, for fall 2022 applicants, we are not looking at ACT or SAT scores. That is across the entire CSU system. We will not be reviewing ACT or SAT scores for admissions purposes. So even if you've taken them, we will not review them. So please save your money. I know there's a lot of schools that are still being test optional or are requiring test scores, so you want to make sure you're sending them to those universities instead. The CSU system does not have letters of recommendations or personal statements, so we just ask a couple of straightforward yes or no and number-based questions on extracurricular activities and work experience. And if you do want to study music or art and design as majors, you will need to submit an audition or a portfolio, and the departments will let you know exactly what they're looking for. If you want to transfer to Cal Poly, it's about 60 semester units or 90 quarter units at your community college. So it's about 2 years at your college. And if you're serious about transferring to Cal Poly, please make sure you're going to our admissions website. Go to the transfer tab and you'll see this major specific transfer criteria tool. You'll put in the major you're interested in. So let's say you want to study food science. You'll press submit and it'll show you the list of required and desired courses you need to take at your community college. We also look at your GPA. Same questions about your extracurricular activities and work experience. Music applicants and art and design have that extra component. Along with architecture transfer applicants will also have a portfolio that the department will contact you about as well. One thing to note about applying to Cal Poly is because you're declaring a major, you are only competing against students going into that same major. So let's say you want to study software engineering and your friend is applying and they want to study electrical engineering. You two will not be competing against each other going into Cal Poly. Your competition is solely the students going into that major that year. Last but not least, just a couple of additional resources. We know declaring your major at 17, 18 can be daunting, so we want to help you with that process. Our YouTube channel has a very comprehensive majors playlist that has over 100 videos that have been done by current students in every single one of our majors. On our admissions page, on the main page, we have an Explore Our Majors tool, so check that out as well. That QR code is the same brochure that I put in the chat earlier. And then lots of Instagram accounts, but I do encourage you to follow CalPoly_admissions. We go live every Monday at 6 p.m. and all past lives have been saved on our IGTV and YouTube as well. Again, I am the Southern California rep, so please call me, text me, email me if you have any questions, and I'll be answering some questions at the end of the presentation as well. So thank you so much, everyone.
Hi, everyone. It's lovely to have you join us, and thank you for being here tonight. As stated, my name is Cuca Acosta. I am the Associate Director for Admission at the University of California, Santa Barbara, UCSB, your local University of California campus for my Santa Barbara County folks, and local in a sense of Southern California. So here's what you need to know. The University of California is a 9-campus system. I'm not talking specifically about Santa Barbara tonight. I will be talking about the system as a whole. So if you have those specific UCSB questions, add them to the Q&A box. Got it? Good. All right, so the University of California's 9 undergraduate campuses are going to be unique when it comes to size, location, and sometimes our majors. You'll find the northernmost campus is UC Davis, which happens to be outside of Sacramento, and the southernmost campus is San Diego. And they are dramatically different when it comes to size, location, and even some of the majors they offer. For example, the only campus with agriculture is UC Davis. If you're looking for an amazing gaming program, Santa Cruz. If you want to be part of aquatic biology, the only campus to have it is Santa Barbara. Maybe you're interested in, having something that is, biology. Well, guess what? All of us have it, but are you looking for a niche within that? That's where you'll find differences from one campus to the other. So what is your job, you ask? Simple. You want to be looking at the University of California's 9 campuses equally, because that University of California degree will take you places. So what do you need to know? Well, you need to know that the University of California serves the state of California. We have a freshman admissions path and we have a transfer admissions path. We'll talk primarily about the freshman admissions process, but note that there are two. All the UC campuses will take freshman admission, which is students who are coming out of high school. And then our transfer admissions might vary slightly between sophomore level and junior level for each UC campus. We do serve about 40% of our students are first in their family to go to college. That's first generation, meaning mom and dad do not have a 4-year degree. So that gives you an understanding that the University of California is here for you. We want to make sure that we're giving you an option and opportunity to study what you want to study. With over 800 majors, there is something there for you. Just be aware that it might have a different title. International relations, global studies. It's the same thing, but just has a different title. So be aware of those differences and don't slide over a campus going, they don't have my major. It might be called something else. And that's why you want to talk to the admissions offices across the campuses and get to know us. Now, the University of California is different from the CSU system in that we teach theory and we practice research. So our faculty are working to critically think and problem solve and going why or how or what if, or let's just start asking a whole bunch of random questions in different areas, from theater, music, dance to economics, political science, engineering. In every one of our academic disciplines, we have faculty conducting research on climate change, research on how to make wine more efficient in the process of bottling it. We have things like getting political understanding and speeches and how words matter, political and activist movements, and so much more. And one of the goals is that at any UC campus, as you're learning about theory, you're able to critically think and problem solve. So yes, you're able to get a job or a career today, but you're also prepared for the jobs and careers that don't even exist yet in 5, 10, or 15 years. Our goal at the University of California is for you to pick the campuses, plural, where you think you'd be a good student. So look at size, because we range from 8,000 students at UC Merced to 40,000 students at UCLA. Look at location. Do you want a small campus that's in a suburban area or a large campus that's in a large metro city? Also, again, that major. And as you find your list, note that every single one of the 9 University of California campuses gives you an opportunity to be supported, not just academically, but also in your personal experiences. We work to have undocumented student representatives at every one of the 9 campuses. We have programs for our former foster youth at every one of the 9 campuses. We have military and veteran services at every one of the 9 campuses, so on and so forth. So our goal is to help you not just become that great student, but also to be that wonderful individual, to grow personally and academically. So what do you need to know? Well, the freshman admissions process is holistic. So let's talk a little bit about the requirements and what we're looking for in the UC application. And transfer admissions is going to be specific to your major as well as the campus you're applying to. So touch base with us if you think you might want to go in the transfer route. All right, the one singular University of California application will open August 1st of your senior year. That UC application will be accepted between November 1st and November 30th. So while you have access in August, September, and October, you cannot push submit until November. None of the UC campuses do early action or early decision, which means 30 days in November to push submit. The campus that you want to apply to will charge you $70. So if I'm applying to Santa Barbara and San Diego and Santa Cruz, that's 70 times 3. That will be charged to you in the application when you push submit. What? That's a lot of money? No, but there is a fee waiver within the UC application. And based off of the income that you report, you can qualify for up to 4 campuses free of charge. Be aware that the University of California application, again, goes live August 1st for the class of 2022. You'll find it at apply.universityofcalifornia.edu. Within that application, you will have to self-report both your academics as well as your personal accomplishments. The requirements for the University of California campuses include completing your A through G requirements. Those A through G requirements are the same requirements that the CSUs have. So yes, we're nice to you. We have one set of requirements. Your history, your math, your English, your science. Yes, this sounds familiar, right? Why? Because they overlap with your high school graduation requirements. But what you should note is that the University of California is looking for a C or better so that we can check the box that you've completed the requirement. Also make note that the UC campuses will calculate your GPA. All 9 of us will use sophomore and junior year grades only. That's right. Freshman year will not be looked at in your GPA, but it will be looked at to make sure that you passed the curriculum. Also be aware that it is a weighted GPA, which means we give you extra credit for AP, IB higher level, international baccalaureate higher level, by the way, college transferable courses, and or any honors courses that are UC approved. Now, the University of California is going to be looking at the classes that you take, the rigor of your coursework, hey, what's the strength of your senior year? We look at all of this in a holistic or comprehensive review process. Now, what we look at for you outside of the classroom is going to depend from one student to the other. So some students are athletic in nature. Yay for you. Congratulations. Some of us should never play a sport in public, right? Some of you are musicians. Amazing. Some of you love community service. Applause to you. So note that when it comes to extracurriculars and what you do outside of the classroom, none of the UC campuses have a checklist. Instead, we ask, what did you do during the 4 years of high school? That's right, the 4 years of high school. I don't care about 3rd grade. I don't care about 7th grade. I'm asking, what were you doing as a high school student? So have you been keeping track of your activities? Not just a list of your accomplishments, but your commitment in each of those accomplishments. The application will ask you for hours per week and weeks per year. Do you remember what you did in 9th grade? I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, so the answer might be no. This is a great time for my juniors to start making lists, for my freshmen to start keeping track, and for my sophomores to think, okay, let me update my information. Within the application process, we look at context. Context is a huge word across all 9 campuses because we don't compare students to one another. So if you're looking at Santa Barbara and UCLA, I don't call Santa Barbara to go, should you take them or should I? We do not talk to each other. And I also will, in the context, look at, okay, what was available to you? And even in the same household, your activities might vary, right? I have no God-given athletic talent, but my brother was a great baseball player. So context is key. Note that the University of California campuses will do this through only the UC application. We don't allow for letters of recommendation in general admissions. We don't allow for demonstrated interest. We don't do legacy, and we will not stalk you on social media. You should still clean it up. I'm just saying. So be aware that the admissions process has that internal academic and that external social combined review. Now, what do we not have? Well, we no longer have a required exam. The University of California publicly announced that we will be test blind. So that means that we will not be using SAT or ACT exams in the review of admission and or scholarships. Now, this is important. Almost all of us have it on our website already. So this is for the class of 2022 and also for the class of 23 and 24. We've publicly put that out there. You can check the University of California testing for those opportunities to see it in writing. But what you should note is that there are some optional exams out there, including AP, IB, and through the end of June, the SAT subject tests. Do you have to take those? No, they're optional, my friends. And if you choose to take them, they can look at the context of you taking that exam, failing it or passing it. Because it's not required, it's okay if you don't take the test. Because it's not required, it's okay if you don't want to share your AP scores. It's also okay if you pass them. Kudos to you. When it comes to the exam requirements, again, there aren't any. So take a deep breath in and then a deep breath out, because what we look at is everything else you've done. And trust me, you've done a lot. Within the application process, you should find that the University of California General Admissions and that testing information is available to you at universityofcalifornia.edu/admissions. Also note that our transfer process, which I'm not going to go into, is available from a link on that website. Unfortunately, the UC campuses remain closed through the end of spring quarter or spring semester. So if you are looking to get involved with, figuring out what's the right fit for you and visiting us, note that we are working on a reopening plan for late summer, early fall. All of us, though, have virtual guided tours, virtual aerial tours. Merced has a drone tour. So please join our mailing list so that you can be invited to our openings this summer or this fall on each of the UC campuses. I'll point out that the University of California has a commitment to our California students. Our blue and gold plan allows students who are looking at the University of California campuses to come in with their tuition paid based off of income so that it can be more quote unquote affordable to you. Note that over 70% of University of California students also receive some type of financial aid to pay for their cost of attendance. So if you've got questions, we've got answers. And I'll turn it back over to our hosts in order to have you ask those particular questions of us.
Well, hello. All right, so we have been seeing your questions come in. Please, if you have more questions, use the Q&A function so that we can keep track of them and they don't get lost in the chat. So if you have more, please toss those in there. But we have some commonly asked questions that came to us ahead of time, so we are going to jump right into those. So let's get started. All right, so, and this could be for both the Cal State and the UC. So if both of you want to answer, that's fine. But will SAT, ACT tests be used for scholarship purposes? That looks like a pretty resounding no.
Sorry, I had to unmute. No, not for the University of California.
Same with the California State Universities. We will not be using test scores for scholarship purposes.
Which does match up pretty well with the test-free, test-blind decision from the schools. So they will not be using them for admissions, so it won't be used for the scholarship as well. So let's jump into our next one. Will they be considered for college credit, SAT or ACT tests?
College credit in the sense of you're hoping to get college units, then the answer is no. We've never given college credit in that sense. If you're asking whether or not you can use the SAT or ACT in the sense of English validation, the answer is the University of California will continue to use those to validate for many of us our writing requirement for placement. And we've posted that on a website. I'll put that into the Q&A so that you can see that link and where that placement goes for the University of California.
It's the exact same for the CSU system too.
Right. Yes. And I think good distinction there in the validation versus the credit part. And I do see tons of questions being added in. If it's at all possible to use the Q&A, please do that just so we can keep track. All right. So would submitting a high test score, I think we know the answer probably to this, but submitting a high test score potentially give an applicant an edge? I'll let you guys answer, which is going to be quick, and then I can give a little more context around admissions.
The answer is if you try to submit a score, I actually have no physical way of seeing it when I'm reviewing your application at a University of California campus. I did not get to see it. Even if you sent me the official version, I could not load it into my system to see it in the selection process. If you put it into the application, hey, I have a 1600 on my SAT, I could not use it in the selection process this year. So note that you're taking the test for personal gain. When it comes to the University of California, we will not use it in selection.
Same with the CSU system. We will not be reviewing test scores whatsoever for admissions purposes.
And I think that's a good distinction. I know there's a lot of questions that we have around the testing, and it probably feels repetitive that we're talking about this, but I think the reason why we're putting these questions in is to make sure we hammer home the fact that the UCs and the Cal States will be test-free or test-blind. Those are really an interchangeable term, but they will not be using them. In general, for admissions, it will depend on your college from the scholarship side that you're applying to that is not a UC or a CSU. But I would let you know that submitting a high test score, potentially this question, potentially giving an edge, it will only help your application if it's something that is additive to your academic profile for other colleges that are not UC or CSU. It will not hurt you to not submit a test score if that school is test optional. But if it is additive to your academic profile and you feel like it's an extra piece that shows a strength of yours, you can absolutely give it to you, or submit it. But you will also not be compared to those students who do not submit it. So it's not going to hurt you to not submit it. And if you send it in, it can be additive, but those two students won't be compared to each other. They will be reviewed in the context of the things that they submit. So I think that's a helpful piece. All right, so how did the test blind policy affect applicant processing this year? Were there more applications, less? It's a big question.
For the University of California, we all saw more applications. Specifically, Santa Barbara, we saw a 16% increase in freshman applications. That's a pretty big jump. And yes, many of them felt that it was okay to submit an application since I don't have to worry about testing. Other students already knew they wanted to apply to us. We also had students from 2020 who took a gap year. So we saw different reasons for that. I will state that if there's one application or if there's 100 applications, when it comes to testing, it's never been the only factor for admissions. The University of California has always had multiple factors. In fact, we had 14 factors in admissions. So with the test or without the test, there were still a lot of variations of how we reviewed a student.
Yeah, for the CSUs, we also saw an increase in applications. Cal Poly specifically, we had 65,000 applications, was a record-breaking number, but every single year, our application numbers are increasing regardless of the testing policy. And again, just like what Cuca was saying, it's not just the test scores that we're looking at. We're also looking at your A through G courses, your GPA, your extracurriculars. So know that there's other factors that we will be reviewing in replace of your testing.
All right, I see that Q&A filling up, so we'll keep going. Can we debunk the myth that more out-of-state students are being considered or accepted due to the higher tuition rate? And I think that means the higher tuition that they pay. Or at least can we address this?
Yeah, no, California student, you're not competing with an out-of-state or an international student. Apples and oranges. Granted, you're both fruit, but they're apples and oranges. You're going to find that we don't admit more students because they can pay, and we don't look at actually the UC campuses as a whole are need blind. So when we're looking at your application, while we do ask for income from a family, it's often to trigger whether or not you're eligible for a fee waiver and to set context, not to set whether or not we should admit you because you're able to pay or whether or not we should admit you because, you're bringing in more money. That's not how it works with the UCs. And Anna's going to say the same thing, but Anna, say it again.
Yeah, exactly what Cuca was saying. And for Cal Poly, actually, we have a cap for out-of-state students. It's typically about 15% out-of-state students and 85% California students. And reason being, we are a California public school. So our primary demographic that we will be working with is California students. So you're totally okay.
All right, so how does the UC, so we're kicking this to you, Cuca, how does the UC plan to handle the increase in applicants wanting a UC education?
And if you look at the last 10 years, the University of California campuses are some of the most applied to campuses in the world. This isn't a trend that just started because of testing going away. We always look for students who can bring in a well-rounded student body for us. Again, you yourself don't have to be well-rounded because if you're not a musician, I can still love you. If you're not an athlete, I can still love you. but together we look for a well-rounded student body. So our goal is to make sure that we bring in a freshman class and a transfer class that can create that well-rounded student body. We have a 2-to-1 guarantee. The state of California and the University of California campuses have come together and stated for every 2 incoming California freshmen, we will bring in 1 California transfer student. So if a student doesn't come in at the freshman level, they can look at transfer paths. But we also have our ELC program, eligibility in the local context, and most California high schools are part of this. So the top 9% of students at your high school are guaranteed, if they complete the admissions requirements and they're eligible for admission, they're guaranteed a spot on a UC campus. Now, is it the one campus I applied to? No, but note that that ELC program is there and we're happy to talk about it. If you're looking at that, you can Google ELC UC to get more details about it.
All right, let's see what's coming up next. Now we have some Cal State questions. Do the Cal States have any plans for test optional or test-free admissions long term?
So all I can say is just for fall 2022, we are test blind across the entire CSU system, and we don't have that decision made for the next few years. So hang tight for that update.
All right, let's see, here we go. Cal Poly San Luis Obispo specific question. On average, how many admitted students have the recommended 5th year of English?
Yeah, so we actually don't have a specific number, but just know that it's not that many. If anything, the recommended amount for English is usually the one that students don't meet, as it's pretty hard to get that 5th year of English in high school. So please don't think that you're not eligible because of that 5th year. And it really comes down to what major you're applying to and also the students that are going into that major. So that's why I'm not able to really give you you should get a 5th year because that's what everyone's going to get. It just depends on who applies that year into what major.
All right, let's see. Here we go here. Okay, so we have this question about the transfer rate on average to the UCs and SLO from community college.
Yeah, the transfer rate from community college to SLO is about 20%. And actually, if you go in the chat where I shared the brochure, you can actually see the number of applied versus admitted versus target, which is how many students enroll across first years and transfer students. So it's all in the chat.
So we received about 25,000 transfer applications at UC Santa Barbara. We had a 48% admit rate. We just admitted our students last week, so yay, transfer. But as a whole, again, that 2-to-1 is our goal from the University of California standpoint. 6 of the 9 campuses have a transfer admissions guarantee with any one of the California community colleges. So if your uncle lives in San Francisco and you want to go away to college and go to San Francisco City College, or you want to go to OCC or Saddleback or wherever, that guarantee is in place for you. I'll put into the chat box the UCSB transfer admissions guarantee because transfer is a great option. And we do have boot camps for our students. The transfer path for the University of California is inclusive of each of the UCs doing what we call transfer prep. So if you're looking at the University of California and you know you want to transfer and you're a junior in high school or you're a senior, those transfer prep programs sign you up with an advisor to help you walk through the process. And again, the 2-and-2 program is essentially 2 years at a community college, your last 2 years at the University of California, and you end up with your 4-year degree. And you'll find that it's a great opportunity for students. I'll again put that into the chat box.
All right, so that leads us to heading to our Q&A. So the live Q&A. So this slide is just going to hang out here on the screen for a minute, and I'm going to pop up the Q&A box and see if we can get to them. Now, you guys have been taking it to heart to put those questions in the Q&A, and we have 27 questions and counting. I do not think we'll be able to get to all of them, so we'll try to tackle as many as we can that might be new questions. So let me throw these out here. One quick one is, how can we calculate our weighted Cal State or UC GPA?
That's a great question. I will state that the University of California GPA is from sophomore and junior year. It is going to be something that we redo for you. So even if you calculate it on your own, you're not entering it anywhere. So I will put a tutorial so that you can visualize what happens into the chat box for you, or you can look at the UCSB For Me YouTube channel to look at our mini tutorials on how to calculate the GPA.
So for the CSU system, same thing, we're looking at sophomore and junior year GPA, except for Cal Poly SLO, we actually count in freshman year as well. So we're going to be looking at freshman, sophomore, junior year weighted GPA. So that will include 8 semesters worth of weighted classes. So that's your honors and AP and college level classes. But similar to the UC system, once you submit all the information in the application, every campus is going to recalculate your GPA as well. And again, if you check out that brochure, you can see some of the average weighted GPAs we have had across the 6 colleges. We don't have them broken up by major, just by the 6 colleges.
Okay, so this is a question that I think are on a lot of that's on a lot of students' minds. So someone is saying that they worked really hard and studied for the SAT and earned a really good score. But since it won't be considered with some of these test-free schools, I think they feel like a little, like that's a bummer that they got such a good score. So the question is, any suggestion on how to reference the score in the application, or how should they show that they're a hard worker to kind of reflect that type of work?
Kudos to you on your grade score. You are one of the lucky ones who could get a test, and yay that you wanted to do it. So let's start with, validating your hard work. We do not reference SAT or ACT if it's self-reported in the application. So be aware that you can show your hard work by the rigor of your coursework. You can show your hard work by the GPA that we will calculate from you. That's where your academic rigor is going to come from. And we appreciate you wanting to share an SAT or ACT. Just note that it will not be a factor in our admissions process on a UC campus.
Same with the CSU system. We're not going to be looking at ACT or SAT scores for admissions purposes. So we want to see your academic rigor and just you being an awesome student across the classes you're taking, the GPA you're getting, and then also getting involved. It's really important to showcase what you're doing outside of the classroom. I know with the CSU system, we're only asking a couple of questions, but it makes a difference when you actually have extracurriculars and work experience that you can document on the application.
So a little bit of a shift. There's a lot of questions in here about how are the schools taking into context COVID and the limiting factor on extracurricular activities. So I don't know if you guys can speak to that a little bit. How are the colleges taking that into account?
Of course. The University of California campuses, we again look at context. And county by county, in the state of California, there were different restrictions. Santa Barbara County, we were walking out and about every day. We were masked. I wasn't locked up in my house. And that was one of the beautiful things. We could walk on the beach. So you saw people doing beach cleanup still. You saw people doing, activities and doing things that were slightly different when it came to duration, but still hobbies, talents, and passions. So it might be that during the pandemic, you weren't playing lacrosse, but now you were starting a blog, and that blog was documenting your life, and you have 20,000 followers during the pandemic. That can be part of your UC application, and we use that to see how you use your time. Maybe you were working at the kitchen table, and you've got 3 siblings who are running around, and mom put you in charge of your little siblings. That is now part of your UC application. Add that because it adds context to how you spent your time. And note that we use that not just during a pandemic, but also pre-pandemic, if you were taking care of your siblings or had passions or hobbies that were non-traditional, in our holistic review.
So actually for most CSUs, they actually don't have those additional extracurricular work experience questions. With Cal Poly SLO, we do have 4 questions that we ask you. And typically we're only asking for the last year from when you're applying, but we do understand that with the pandemic, there may have been restrictions. So we have been acknowledging extracurriculars and work experience prior to that as well. So you'll be able to indicate that on the application.
So some questions. There is one here that is specific to Cal State, although Anna, I will give a caveat before you try to answer that I'm not sure you can answer since you don't represent the entire CSU system. So of course, answer if you can. But one of the questions is that they understand the Cal States are impacted in the majors, and is graduating in 4 years something that is common or realistic for students?
Yeah, so it will vary campus to campus. Not every single CSU is completely impacted. So Cal Poly is an example where all 64 majors are impacted. We have some universities where no majors are impacted, and then we have some where there's some. And typically a university will also tell you on their website what majors are impacted. And I'm trying to remember what the second piece to that question was. I apologize.
Oh, just if it was realistic to graduate in 4 years with that impaction.
Yeah. So again, it depends on the CSU and just like what their major just like process looks like. But for Cal Poly specifically, yes, you can definitely graduate in 4 years. Our average graduation rate is actually 4 years and a quarter because our architecture and landscape architecture programs are both 5-year programs. And a lot of students are coming in with those AP IB credits, which will get them ahead of the game. And for Cal Poly specifically, you're actually blocked into your classes your first year. And so we make sure that you're taking the right classes in order to stay on track to graduate. I'll put in the chat, we do have our graduate status reports across our different colleges, so you can see some grad stats for our college. But again, it will vary campus to campus.
And then a UC specific question for you, Cuca. Is the new UC test blind policy temporary or something that will be lasting longer than the next few years?
The University of California in March 2020, pre-pandemic, made an announcement that after 2 years of study looking at the testing, we were already planning to go test optional for the class of 21 and 22 and test blind for the class of 23 and 24. So this is something that we've had conversations with we've done research over time. And so note that this seems to be our trend, but I cannot speak on behalf of faculty if they're going to remove the test from here on out for the future. But note for that, freshmen, sophomores, and current juniors, testing is not something we'll look at.
And then for both the UC and Cal State applications, will you be able to see AP scores or other types of testing that you would use, or how would you use those in any context of the application since there won't be SAT, ACT?
I'll speak to UC's. The University of California application, the 7-section application, one of those sections is testing. So I could put in my AP or my IB, or if I squeezed into an SAT subject test, I could put those in there, and they're looked at in context. So if you took a test and you passed it, great. It's holistically evaluated. If your school doesn't offer AP or IB and you didn't take the test, that's okay as well. I think there's such a panic to showcase a test so that you can prove, hey, I got a 3 on my AP or a 5. Again, it's one of many factors in our admission. I'd rather see you do really well in your grades and show me that you're taking an academically rigorous coursework in the 4 years of high school than worry about whether you can perform well in a 45-minute to an hour-long AP exam. So don't tell anyone else I said that.
So for us, obviously, we're looking at the AP courses that you've taken because that will help towards not only your A through G courses, but also that weighted GPA. In terms of the tests, again, it's not required to take the tests. If you do take the tests and you score a 3, 4, or a 5 and get accepted to Cal Poly, once you accept our offer, that is when you're going to send us your official transcripts along with any official test scores like your AP tests. And then we'll help you get into classes that are one step ahead because those AP scores are going to help with some of those lower division general ed and major courses. And so if you're curious of what AP tests and what scores will get you credit what credit it'll give you. I'll go ahead and put that link in the chat. But again, this is Cal Poly specific. It really depends on the university on what type of test scores and tests that they will give you credit for.
So we have some questions about courses and community college stuff, but one that stood out is, how does a C in an AP class impact admissions, or does it at all?
I get this question all the time. That's why I'm giggling. So let's be real. I love A's. I like B's. A C is acceptable. D's and F's are not. So if you got a D in an AP class, that's a D. It's a failing grade, even if it's an AP class. So be aware of that. If you're looking at your schedule and you're coming in with a whole bunch of C's, that will impact your GPA if it's an AP class or if it's a college prep class. So really think about your schedule holistically and put yourself in the advanced classes in the subjects where you're going to be the strongest, and that A or B is really an option for you. 1C is not the conversation. It's all of your grades from sophomore and junior year together, and as they calculate your GPA. That's what you need to be aware of, because I'm not just looking at one grade, I'm looking at all of them in your A through G coursework.
So I tend to get asked, is it better, and this is when, we were looking at ACT, SAT scores, students used to ask, is it better for me to have really high test scores and taking, non-AP honors classes, or is it better for me to take AP honors classes and get, lower grades? The quickest answer is we're looking at students with the highest test scores, the highest GPA, the most amount of A through G courses. Of course, this year we're not looking at test scores. So with that mindset, we obviously want you to get A's and B's, but it's, not the end of the world if you get a C. But, I'm always saying try to aim to get those higher grades if you can, because that's what students are going to be coming in with. The biggest thing is just please do not get any D's or F's, because D's I know give you credit at the high school level, but D's unfortunately will not be eligible at the university level. So we need you to get C's or higher in all of your classes. Of course, C's, if it's a weighted class, if it's an AP or honors class, that will be weighted, but think that it'll be even more weighted if it's a B or an A. So again, C's are not like the end of the world, but we want to encourage you to try to get some higher B's and A's as well.
And I would echo that for just in general for college admissions, not just for UC and CSU. D's would be considered failing grades or non-eligible grades at most colleges, if not all of them. And the exact same theory that we just talked about would apply to those schools. So this is a question for CSU. There aren't any essays. So do you have any advice on how to stand out?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is just going to be your A through G courses, especially for impacted campuses like Cal Poly. We want to see that you're taking the desired amounts of A through G courses if you can. That GPA is going to be really big, that weighted GPA. And then again, just answering those questions with your extracurriculars and work experience. 2 of those questions include, do you hold a leadership position in any of your extracurricular activities? And then the other question is your work experience related to the major you're declaring on the application? So your answers are really going to help in terms of your extracurriculars and work experience. But again, the CSU Cal State Apply application is very number and academic based. And I always like to say that, a number doesn't define you, but with this application, it is going to be very academic and number based.
So then this would be for both of you, but is there current GPA info for admitted students or average admitted students that families can refer to learn if a particular UC or CSU would be a reach or not?
So we don't have the one for the class that just got admitted, but for the profile for first years and transfers from this last incoming class, I'll go ahead and put that in the chat.
I'll echo that. The class of 2020, the last year seniors, I have that information. And again, they were also test blind because we could not look at their exams. But for the class of 2021, I haven't finished enrolling my class, so I don't have averages on who we've admitted. I don't know if I'm going to the wait list, so that will change all of those averages. But I do want to point one thing out. I know that on occasion students are going, oh, well, that school's average GPA is a 4.6. No, it's not. The University of California GPA goes from 3.0 in California all the way to 4.4 because of the capped GPA calculation. So your transcript might say 4.6, but I might be giving you something completely different. That's the first thing to recognize. The second is GPA is a factor, and the strength of your GPA based off of the courses that you take are part of that holistic admissions. So Anna took, basket weaving, and she took, the art of crocheting, and she took, and has a 4.0. I took calculus. Sorry, Anna, I should be the one taking basket weaving and crocheting. You should be taking calculus, right? And so not all GPAs are equal because of the rigor of the coursework. So be aware that we look at these things on a UC campus evaluation. What was available at your high school? What did you take advantage of there? Your 4.0 or your 3.5 might be equal in nature based off of what you took in your classroom and what was available to you. So I hate when you compare yourself to the GPAs because that's a factor out of 13 factors that we're looking at. So no campus should be off the table until you realistically see, was your major a factor in the admission selection process? Was there an interview an audition review process, and was talent in there? All of these things should be thought of, not just that one GPA benchmark.
Okay, so a question, and this is a big one. We've had a couple people throw this in here, but what about the sophomore year, or really for kids who were in that 2020, that spring of 2020 year, when kids got a pass, no pass, or credit, no credit? How do you guys handle that?
Good question. The University of California considers the pandemic terms to be winter 2020 through this summer 2021. So if we see a pass, a credit, or a grade of C or higher, we will check the box that you've completed the A through G requirement. But only letter grades will be calculated into your GPA. So if your high school's been giving you pass or credit and you only have one semester of grades, then that's your whole GPA for the University of California. Be aware of that. And remember, GPA is calculated from sophomore and junior year, but I forgot to mention it also is inclusive of summer work. So summer before sophomore year, summer after sophomore year, and summer after junior year as well.
It's the same for the CSU system. During the pandemic, we were accepting pass credit courses, but yes, if it is going to look as a pass or credit on your transcript, it will not be counted towards your GPA.
Yes, and actually that answered a couple of other questions that folks had about taking a college course and will that be counted. So as you heard, it will be counted in those specific summers. And then does taking a college course over the summer, can you get college credit for those courses at the CSU or UC?
If it's a college transferable course, the answer is going to be you get high school and you get college credit. So what's a transferable course? Anna already answered this for you. There is articulation on the assist.org website. So if we see it listed there from a community college, we will give you credit. If you ended up doing a summer program at a CSU or a UC campus or some other private institution, there is no pre-articulation that we do. So just note that once you enter it into the application and you get admitted, then we'll verify that it's transferable for both high school and college credit.
The biggest thing that I always emphasize is a lot of high school students that may have taken college courses or dual enrollment, they start to think that they're a transfer applicant. You are a high school applicant with college credit. So you want to make sure, because remember, the transfer criteria is very different. So make sure you're applying as a first-time freshman or first-year applicant. And at least on the Cal State Apply, there's a section for college courses, and that's where you'll get to add in the community college or the four-year university you took the classes at. And what's great is some of those classes will help towards your A through G, and it'll also help towards college credit. And so you might be able to get out of some classes once you get to Cal Poly or any other CSU.
And since we're talking about transfer, there's a few questions about that as well. Are the transfer options, and I'm assuming this question means as far as the courses that are required and all of that, but are the transfer options from Cal State and UC the same? Are the transfer options from Cal State to UC the same as community colleges to UC? So actually, this sounds like a specific UC question. Sounds like they're asking about the differences from transferring from a Cal State to a UC versus a community college to UC. Are those similar, the same? Is that even a similar process?
So any California community college student who meets the criteria is eligible for the guarantee. But if I'm coming from another institution, be it a four-year institution, in-state or out-of-state, the admissions requirements are the same, but those guarantees are not in place.
Thank you. I think that does clarify that. So in that same transfer vein, for both of you, do gaps in community college enrollment due to personal circumstances affect transfer admission decisions?
No to the UC front. I've seen students who are taking multiple years off because of personal life getting in the way, and that's perfectly okay.
Same here. It doesn't matter as long as you have the 60 semester units or 90 quarter units completed. It doesn't matter how many years it takes you to complete that.
All right. So we're winding down to the last couple of minutes here in questions. If you guys have some that you want me to try to do live, you can still throw them in the Q&A. I will not be able to get to all of them. I just want to apologize. But I also want to say thank you so much to everybody who is throwing questions in here, because this is probably the most interactive webinar audience I have been with, which is saying a lot because I think we've all done a lot of webinars this year. So another question, how would you guys handle, or what would you guys advise as far as taking more courses in subjects than are required? Are you a better candidate if you take an extra course in a science or a math or a language?
I'll let Anna start.
Yeah, I mean, for us, remember the chart that I showed, we are looking for more A through G courses than the minimum requirement that the CSU system has. Remember, that's not for all CSUs. Cal Poly is just a little bit of an exception, being an impacted campus. So if you do take additional science, additional math, but please make sure you're taking the course, I think Cuca mentioned this earlier, that you know you can do well in. If you're not that great with science, but you're like, hey, I'm going to take a 5th or 6th year of science, I don't recommend it. I definitely want you to take classes that you know you would do great in. That would also help towards your GPA and A through G course count as well.
I'll point this out. If you're an engineer, and that's inclusive of computer science, then 3 years of math, which is the A through G requirement, will not cut it. That is not selective for engineering on any UC campus. I'm going to look at Anna, go, girl, true for CSU and you, right? I'm really looking at pre-calculus by senior year. And if you're above that, awesome. You're more selective for engineering. If you're not an engineer, I'm not going to go and say, oh, hey, you're a philosophy major. Did you take philosophy in high school? Oh, you're a Spanish major. Are you taking a 4th year of Spanish? Because we don't admit by major in those categories, I look at overall the strength of your coursework. Again, the exception being engineering across the UC campuses. So your question should be to the UC representative, hey, is my major selective or impacted? And is there a second screening? So for example, is there a supplement or is there a set of classes that I should be more competitive in? And then the answer will be yes. And it's a small number of those majors across the UC campuses.
Okay, so I'm going to ask one final question of our UC and CSU experts, and then we had one or two generic questions about college admissions that came in, and then so we can bounce to that. So final question for UC and Cal State. Will either of the UC or Cal State system immediately reject an applicant if the GPA is lower than its average or qualifying range, which I know would be two things?
Good distinction. The University of California, you pay me $70 to review your application. I will review your whole application. So even if you don't have the 3.0 minimum weighted GPA of a California high school student, I'm going to look at everything to make sure, one, that when I recalculate your GPA, it really is below a 3.0. We look at everything because you never know. There might be a campus on a UC, there might be a UC campus that is willing to make an admissions by exception for you. The second thing to make note of is, remember, we recalculate the GPA. So you never know where you fall within that average or where you fall within that minimum. So you can always work with your high school counselor or your fun college counselors here to ask to help to calculate that UC GPA.
Yeah, for us, because we need to recalculate the GPA, because specifically the Cal State Apply is really only looking at sophomore, junior, we will review everything first before rejecting or accepting any student. And so just know that it is very important that you're self-reporting everything accurately. We are trusting you that you're putting in the courses you've taken, the grades that you've gotten, because that's what we're going to be reviewing. We verify everything with official documents after you've been accepted. So please make sure everything is correct. And this is just off on a little bit of a tangent, but with the whole thing of being impacted on certain campuses, the Cal State system does have something called redirection. And so if you agree to be redirected, let's say you apply to Cal Poly, you don't get in, you can actually be redirected to a non-impacted campus. And so I'm going to go ahead and put that link in the chat too, because that's also another option for you if maybe your GPA or the courses you taken weren't enough for a certain campus.
Okay, so keeping an eye on the clock here. Again, I just want to say, my gosh, thank you for being an amazing audience and throwing out so many questions. We could not get to all of them. I'm so sorry about that, but I know Jennifer was tackling as many in the chat as possible. And we had a generic one that I think she wanted to handle, but that will conclude our specific questions to Anna and Cuca with the CSU and UC. And we'll wrap this up here in a couple of minutes.
Great. Thanks, Brianne. So this last question I wanted to kind of address is going to kind of help me transition to the next slide. So yes, earlier the representatives did mention that there was an increase in applications to the UCs and Cal States in general. With that, current trend, we do recommend that students do include schools aside from the UCs and aside from the Cal States. Those are schools that a majority of students in California apply to. Therefore, when you only have those types of schools on your list, you can make it more competitive for yourself. Whereas if you have a balanced list, that might be better for you in terms of increasing the odds of not only getting admitted, but also getting better financial aid packages. So we do want to encourage you, if you have not already, to consider joining us at one of our upcoming events. We have our College List Jumpstart coming up. We have it happening virtually, so you can join us there to help you look for schools, understand what it means to have a balanced list, understand the importance of having good fit schools, and helping you look at tools and resources to look for schools outside of California, to look for other private schools, other schools that will really improve your list and help you get in the right direction so you're confident and ready to hit submit in the fall. In addition to that, we want to get you off and running with your college essays as well. So we will have a college essay brainstorm happening. If you hover over the screen with your phone, anytime there's a QR code, that will take you to our website so you can register right now, or even after the webinar. I will include the link in the follow-up email. In addition to all of our events, as I mentioned earlier, we always have one-on-one appointments available for you for free. Everything we do is free. So we'd love to talk to you about your list and your plans. So take advantage of those while this school year is wrapping up to ensure you're on the right path. Lastly, in the fall, our continued support will be available with college list check-ins to, again, give you a thumbs up if you have a good balance of schools on your list. We'll support you with your college essays, give you a nice feedback opportunity, college application support. Again, one-on-ones will be available. And lastly, but probably most importantly, we will also be providing support with FAFSA and California DREAM Act applications. So with that said, I do want to go ahead and encourage you all to head over to our website if you have any questions about what events we are hosting. But in addition to that, if you have questions, feel free to email us. I'm typing into the chat box our team email, so either myself or my 3 other colleagues can take a look. And with that said, I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to everyone that's here tonight, but most importantly to our special MVPs, to our VIPs, right? Cuca and Anna and Brianne for doing a great job facilitating this as well. We are definitely happy that you all graced us with your presence tonight. And also want to say thank you to my colleague B, who was also tackling the questions that were coming in nonstop. So if anyone has questions that were not answered due to time, please feel free to email us. We'd gladly get you the answer to your question. And before you leave tonight, we just want to ask you one last favor. If you could please fill out our feedback survey. We love to hear feedback to give us an idea of whether or not we're going in the right direction, making sure we're meeting the needs of our families. So again, if you could just scan the QR code and give us some feedback, we would really appreciate that. But thank you so much for joining us. I hope you all have a great evening. And again, thank you all for being here tonight. Goodbye, everyone. Have a good night.